Алло, алло, алло. Окей. Всем привет. Здесь нормально?
Hello, everybody. Is it good I'm standing here?
Спасибо, что пришли на
So
презентацию.
thank you very much for coming for this presentation. My plan today
Что мы сделали
is to discuss
в домах
what we did some time ago
после того,
in terms of
вот.
weaknesses in yachts.
Обо мне. Меня зовут Роланд Сако.
A few words about myself. I'm Roland Sacco. I live in Switzerland, in Geneva. I am a security researcher.
Обучаю курсы по фазингу.
I also teach fuzzing courses.
В университете Швейцарии.
I am a lecturer at the University of Applied Sciences of Western Switzerland. Before that, I worked for Kaspersky Labs in Geneva, but I was part of the team that is mostly based here in Moscow. You see the second slide? It works.
Ага. Но, если честно, до этого проекта я никогда не был на яхте.
In fact, before this project, in all honesty, I've never, ever been to a yacht. I had very few opportunities even, to take a ship anywhere, which means that I knew very little about the upcoming project. But in order to talk to people in the industry, you certainly need to understand something about what they do. Now, look at the illustration here. So, bridge, for example, is not the kind of a bridge you may be thinking about. That's the place where the captain stands when he's controlling the ship, or the yacht, or the deck, for example.
Если вы сидите на корабле, если вы отдыхаете,
Now, if you're lounging,
deck. Но только
if you're just having a good time, it's called the deck, as long as it's outside. If it's inside the yacht, it's no longer a deck. Now, what is a yacht?
яхт это обычно
yacht
яхтой, если в принципе
is something
10 метров.
that is more than 10 meters in length.
Или,
It can be motor powered. It can be a sailing yacht. It could actually be a hybrid.
внутри, посмотрим.
There will be lots of smart things inside, so let's consider what a yacht is. Now, pragmatically speaking,
Это
a yacht
достаточно большой, чтобы у нас
is something that's big enough to have a crew.
тоже есть спальни, есть интернет и
It comes with bedrooms, with the internet, sometimes even a helicopter pad. Unfortunately, helicopters were not part of my project. I mean, the helicopter pad itself was, but not the helicopter.
похожие на тестирование умных.
Testing such yachts is somewhat like testing smart homes. Lake, but not the sea. So what is a super yacht? You must have heard about super yachts, right?
Вот.
Some super yachts belong to Russians, I guess.
Ага. Как раз
So a super yacht
исследование пентеста это суперяхт. Он это
would be a great asset or target for a pen test. And this is the kind of a yacht that we tested. 100 meters long baby, 110 crew members,
количество устройств, компьютер.
lots and lots of devices there, computers, smart home devices. When we started scanning it,
устройства. Но может быть
we discovered lots and lots of devices. More like than 400 devices in total. And obviously comes equipped with a home cinema and a swimming pool and what have you.
Тестировать яхт это абсолютно
So testing a yacht
тестировать
is, in a way,
офис
like testing an office. It's just that
это тоже самое.
it's a floating office. I'm quoting myself here, sorry about that.
Но что такое умный, high-end features?
Now, what are the high-end features you will find there? Now, a super yacht might have smart lighting, and climate control, and cameras, and home cinema system. Various automation systems.
И вот такие устройства нам поможет взломать.
Lots of other devices and systems that can be attack surfaces.
Вот тут был интернет, как я
You will see the internet mentioned here.
интернет в этот день
And as I'm going to mention later,
удобнее.
you know, currently yachts often connect to the internet over Starlink as opposed to SATCOM that were previously used. When I say we, I don't mean myself. Unfortunately, I don't own a yacht.
Для комфорта гостей, экипажа,
So for the guest comfort as well as crew comfort, there will be a bunch of devices shown here, like the ones you need for the home cinema. There is also IPTV box.
радиоканал и так далее.
There is also, you know, an internal radio system.
Который управляет звук.
There are also devices you will need to manage the sounds inside the yacht.
Потому что есть
For example, there is an alarm system there. Now imagine that the crew discovers that something is terribly wrong and they will want to notify everybody. For
комната
example, if you are hearing music in one room
в другой комнате. Это значит, что такие устройства есть.
and the same music plays in another section,
А еще
then probably you've got, you know,
для
a
управления,
yacht-wide
как я сказал,
sound control system.
температура,
I've already mentioned automation systems such as temperature controls, television, music, and so on and so forth.
есть интернет. Раньше
There is obviously the internet connectivity. Previously, satellite communications were the ones used for yachts. They are usually expensive.
каждый месяц.
Like, you spend several $1,000s on the equipment, and you spend several $1,000s every month. And SATCOM
Сколько стоит, но где
is really expensive compared to Starlink. I don't remember how much you gotta pay for Starlink, but we're talking about the range of maybe $100, which is like nothing compared to Starcom expenses. I'm sorry, SATCOM expenses.
навигационная система.
Next one is navigation system.
Потому что он работает
Now this one is interesting because it works in a very old school way. Like, we've got a super yacht, but this system is really outdated. Next slide, please.
ну, довольно старый, но он работает но как old-schooling. Вот тут мы об этом говорим попозже, как все работает, как что
We can discuss later how it all works and what we can do there.
следующий. Ага. Потом есть машинное отделение. Там
Next one is the engine room.
ничего не подключить к интернету.
Fortunately, nothing there is connected to the internet.
Ну, зачем?
So we were told, don't get your hands on it. Like, why should you?
Нет интересного.
Well, we did take a peek inside. We realized there was nothing of interest to us. That's why we won't be talking about this part.
Потом
But it's certainly high-end, no doubt about that. Now, let's consider the network in a yacht.
разные VLAN, там есть для
So it has a VLAN for guests, there is VIP, there is work and crew VLANs.
для людей, как я.
Now, obviously, guests network is for people like me,
У нас
who do not really belong in a yacht.
мы можем смотреть.
And obviously, there will be limitations. Like, I can watch television there, for example, series and movies, and I should have access to the internet for, like, work, but work and crew networks are for the crew.
Просто у них
Like, VIP is like guest, but you do get faster speeds.
способы. Ну, например, смотреть другие фильмы и так далее.
Moreover, on the VIP network, you should be able to order food and to watch, you know, more like channels or more movies. But generally speaking, it is comparable to the guest network in all important respects except speed.
Обнаружили, какие проблемы,
So what have we discovered? What kind of issues?
которые управляют звук.
Now, I have already mentioned various sound control systems.
Ну, все, ну, интересные вещи делать. Ну, например, когда я сказал
Now, this system supports some interesting
одну ту же музыку в разных комнатах,
opportunities. For example, if you're hearing the same music in different rooms, this means there is a sound control system in place.
станет хуже, и все.
Now, if you disrupt the work of this system, a guest's comfort will suffer, but no big deal, right?
должен отправить сообщение или
But now imagine that the captain wants to
информацию, которая важна для всех.
share some important information with everybody on the boat. That will require using the PA, the public enunciation system. Now, if you suppress it, that may lead to difficulties. Now, imagine that there is a security issue, for example, or something wrong is with signaling, or say there is a fire on the yacht.
Что-то происходит.
It would be important for us to know in advance that something bad is happening.
Что есть проблема.
Now, without the alarm sound, we will eventually discover there is fire, but it will probably take more time.
А как все это работает?
So how does it all work?
Они говорят друг с другом при помощи
Now, these devices talk to each other using a protocol called HiQNet,
Harman.
developed by Harman. You know Harman Kardon, you know JBL, they're all in a part of the same group.
Вот этот протокол, он проприетарный. Значит,
So it's a proprietary protocol.
и так далее. Но
Meaning that, they developed it, they don't, disclose it much, but other companies are allowed to use it.
если
Now, if we read the documentation, we will discover
нажимает кнопку shutdown,
that if you press the shutdown button through the web interface,
где написано goodbye.
it will inform
Но это значит просто, что
all the devices with a special packet
общаться, потому что я больше не
that, you shouldn't be talking to me because I'm switching out of the network.
никакого команд, который позволяет
And there is apparently no command enabling you to do a shutdown remotely.
вот
Now, we wanted to check that.
мы пофазили, мы написали
We did some testing, we did some fuzzing. We actually came up with a very simple Python-based fuzzer, like 3 strings long, no more.
и мы как бы брутили вот такие
So we've been brute forcing it.
это только 2 байта, поэтому это было очень быстро. Мы
So you see, it's only a couple of bytes, so it was very fast. So we started fuzzing it, and several minutes later, we got a response from the device,
и
which was like, goodbye,
не отвечали.
and the device stopped responding.
Команда,
And thus we realized that we found a command that enables us to shut the device down remotely.
нам, конечно, не надо ничего, ни пароля, ничего, просто знать.
See, we don't need anything. We don't need any password. We just need to know the MAC address and send the command, and that's it.
Тоже были такие устройства, которые о котором я
There
говорил.
were also devices that I previously mentioned
Полезно для автоматизации. Если
that could be good for automation.
раньше до этого. Но только знаю, что
I didn't really know much about them. Previously, all I knew was that they were very expensive.
подключить
Surprisingly enough,
они были открыты. Ну, как минимум в это
you can connect to them remotely. At least this is the case for this particular project.
и
So we started checking them out,
обнаружили много проблем. Ну,
and we discovered lots of issues.
очень легкие уязвимости.
So we found some very simple vulnerabilities like LFI.
Показали shadow file, и мы использовали John. Через несколько секунд мы нашли пароль.
So
Пароль — это
we were able to find a password in like several seconds.
такие.
And the password I'm not going to disclose was really simplistic, like admin123.
Textbook command injection.
And we also used textbook command injection because what they did was to use parameters
Чтобы показать, что
as part of the cat command
например, для
to show what's happening inside the device.
что, например, состояние CPU,
So let me stress again, that's a diagnostic system. So it returns information on the name of the device, its CPU state, and so on. Naturally, I wanted to talk to the vendors. I told them, hello, we found some vulns in your system, and it should be very easy for you to patch them.
уязвимости есть.
And they asked us, what were these vulns? We shared the details. And then they said,
9,
well, you seem to be running version 3.8.
3.9, мы исправили.
Starting with 3.9, we addressed that.
9, пожалуйста.
And I asked them, can you please give me 3.9? And they said, no way, for sure. This is only for integrators.
Ну, как логин и пароль на платформе. И вот,
Like you gotta have the login and password on the platform, and then you should be able to get the firmware,
ну, типа, ну, пошел на юг.
which is like
Я на юг.
go jump in the lake, which I did.
Reddit. И
But to me, jumping in the lake was jumping in the lake of Reddit. So you know how Reddit works. Reddit is actually a great thing because there will be subreddits on pretty much everything.
Sony и так далее, и так далее.
You can find subreddits on all the manufacturers, for example.
Что
So I'm like, guys, I'm stuck with an old controller I got on eBay.
проблема в том, что есть очень старая версия, я не могу.
So it's running this old version. Can I find the right firmware? Can you please help me with 3.9? So you see, like in 2 hours, somebody responds.
Он отправил тогда 3.5, который мне не
So
очень интересно.
he actually sent me 3.5, which I was not really interested in, 3.9, which I wanted. And he even shared 4.4 with me,
Последняя версия.
which was the latest firmware version.
Посмотрел, конечно, 3
So naturally, I checked it.
же самые, ничего
And I wasn't surprised to see that the vendor changed nothing. Maybe they did something,
нашли.
but obviously not around the vulnerability that we found.
Well,
Well, version 4.4
injection,
fortunately addressed the comment injection vulnerability.
пароль для каждого устройства.
However, the way they addressed it was by generating passwords
А как они так
for every device when it's first used. How do they do that? All they use is the timestamp.
Исправили? Нет.
So much for improvement.
Ну, конечно, еще раз я хотел обратиться к вендору, типа,
So I wanted
вот
to,
здесь
you
нашел что-то интересное.
consult the vendor again. I tap on the door, rap. See what I found here.
Я как-то получил
I tell him,
прошивку,
you know what?
что вы исправили что-то
I've been looking at your firmware.
с
I see that you've been able to address something that had nothing to do with the problems that we discovered. It's good that you finally did it in 4.4, but I see other issues you have there. Obviously, there was no response.
способами, через
I tried communicating with them over LinkedIn, Twitter,
и так далее.
currently called X, and so on and so forth,
Поэтому
and they would not respond.
до сих пор не уверен, что они исправили.
So I don't really think they have addressed this issue.
А также у меня нет такого устройства для того, чтобы тестировать.
Moreover, I don't really have enough devices for testing. So I've got no clue really if they've addressed it or not.
Система, там
Let's talk about the
там
navigation system.
есть два компьютера, PC1, PC2,
So there are two computers there, PC1 and PC2.
к интернету.
So PC1 connects to the internet.
Ну, две компьютера на винде. Мой
Both computers are running Windows.
новой карте на PC1,
So we download new maps to PC1,
USB,
then we copy them to USB stick,
PC2,
which we connect to PC2,
обновление,
and this is how we update the maps there.
которое управляет системой.
How or like why do we do that? Well, because PC2 is actually involved in the navigation process and we don't want it to be exposed to the internet. Smart, isn't it?
которые на корабле.
Next, we talk to the IT guy on the yacht.
И он сказал,
He's like the only IT guy there.
плюс еще у меня была такая хорошая идея.
And he says, I had this good idea.
PC2 он работает в режиме киоска. Это значит,
PC2 works in kiosk mode,
который
meaning
управляет корабль, ну, как система навигационная, и все.
that
Если у вас есть
you know,
доступ, физический доступ, вы не
if you have
ничего не делаете.
physical access,
Ну, вот. Мы начали думать, ну, в принципе, вы видели, наверное,
it's not really clear what Roland means here. Now, you may have seen these videos at on DEF CON that people were able to find ways to escape from the kiosk mode
ну, вот тут много раз, или что-то
by clicking here many times and so on.
там было очень легко.
So getting out of the kiosk mode on that yacht was also very simple.
Вот, из навигационной системы я просто нашел, там были в меню Help, нажать кнопку на Show Manual, там
So in the navigation system, there was a menu with a help button.
эту
I
документацию
was able to find the documentation there.
PDF reader, ну, Adobe PDF.
And, it starts a PDF reader by Adobe.
Open file, и потом ты можешь...
Then I do open file.
Я думаю, ну,
And then obviously you can select a file, right?
PDF.
If it's a very old version of the PDF reader, then there should be vulnerabilities there, right? That would enable command execution.
Взять компьютер домой.
Well, naturally, we can grab a computer, take it home, and physically hack it. But that's not adventurous enough. I want to do something less obvious than that.
Поскольку это компьютер никогда не подключается к интернету,
And since this computer never connects to the internet, ever, obviously has got no patches whatsoever.
очень старая версия, которая...
So, not surprisingly, it was running a very old and a very vulnerable
айтишникам
version.
«О, да, ну,
So I showed it to the IT guys. They said, yeah, sure,
это не такая
whatever.
проблема, потому что у нас
It's no big issue, they said,
соблюдение, если кто-то будет...
because we've got CCTV cameras, and if there are people on the ship we don't trust, we'll be monitoring them.
Но, как я называю, я говорю open bar, это значит, что там...
When I say open bar, I mean there were lots and lots of other vulnerabilities.
Там, например, есть Crest.
And I'm referring to IoT here. So Crestron, you'll probably know. Crestron devices are often used for IPTV and multimedia.
FTP.
So they had anonymous FTP access enabled by default.
Мне очень интересно. Что интересно,
I mean, that's weird, but it's not really interesting.
IPTV, они были на...
What was interesting was that all the IPTV boxes obviously were in, they were available with default creds, which makes a lot of sense. Guests and VIPs all come and go.
root,
And all passwords were the same, like root, Dreambox, and so on. So all the default passwords.
Поэтому мы можем получить доступ к
Which means
устройствам,
that you could easily get access to those devices.
попасть в другие сети, которые нам
But
запрещено. Потому что, как
having this initial access, you could then go to other devices.
находится в...
You will remember, however, that there were 4 different networks. You could not really access devices on the VIP network from the guest network, for example.
который позволяет управить звук, который немного
But remember what I previously said about sound control system?
VLAN guest, мы не можем ничего не делать. Но если
So if we're in the guest VLAN, we cannot do much.
команду, мы можем как все
But if we get access to the sound control system, that is much more interesting.
такие устройства,
Again, you'll say that's not critical enough.
калейдоскоп, escape,
Now, there are
там они
the so-called kaleidoscope devices. They are devised for home cinemas.
yacht или
I mean,
большой,
the kind of cinema
они очень дорогие,
outfit you will have if you have a yacht. They're really expensive.
но
I would love to get it and, play with it, test it. But when I learned the price,
веб-интерфейс,
I quickly figured out that idea. So we checked its interface out.
все поле, которые были, они были...
You won't believe it.
XSS. Ну, абсолютно все.
All the fields there were XSS vulnerable, like each of them.
Script alert 0, но как вот.
So you
И все, но все.
enter it,
Абсолютно.
write your script alert 0, and this is like every field was exposed.
Сообщение вендору.
Naturally, I sent a message to the vendor. Initially, they wouldn't answer at all.
Несколько раз, несколько недель он ответил, что...
Several weeks later, they responded that, yes, thank you very much, we do have some vulnerabilities.
Ну, полтора года они исправили.
18 months later, they actually addressed it.
Исправили, но еще
At least they said that.
доступ к устройству, поэтому они...
I don't have access to the device, so I've got no way of checking that.
Ну вот, просто чтобы повести итог, но у нас есть удаленный
To
доступ.
summarize it all, we have remote access.
Ну, это полезно, если у нас нет физический доступ.
to controllers, which is good if you don't have physical access.
Сразу
Well, this time we're working on the yacht.
получить доступ. Но если у нас нет, то такие контроллеры,
Had we not been allowed onto the yacht, we would be interested in controllers like this because you can access them remotely.
и потом
And once you own them, you should be able to control other devices on the networks.
позволяют отключить звук.
There are also functions there that enable you to suppress the sound system, for example.
Но если
Like if you're just using it to play music, it's not critical, but if there is an alarm that needs to be sounded, that already sounds like a problem.
IPTV можно получить доступ
With IPTV devices, you should be able to get access to the network where you're not allowed, which is nice.
каждого устройства. Это выглядит не очень критично, но если все
Again, you may be thinking that for every device it's not really critical.
такие,
But now imagine that all these devices are compromised and are acting in concert. This way they can, attack the whole yacht, so to speak.
в двух словах,
So, in a nutshell,
суперяхты, они,
it is really funny.
и так далее.
Super yachts, beautiful, elegant, luxurious, and they're called super yachts because they are considered premium,
Много
meaning
гаджетов.
you've got so many gadgets there.
Театр, есть
You've got a home cinema, you've got a swimming pool. And the swimming pool, by the way,
температуры и так далее. Много,
will automatically regulate water temperature for you.
много
It comes with all sorts of bells and whistles, including lots of IoT devices. But we do know that the more IoT devices you have, the bigger will be the potential attack surface.
мы понимаем, что, как я уже
We
сказал,
also realize, like I previously said,
устройства, например, дома IPTV,
that
никому не интересно, что
a home IPTV device, for example,
и так далее. Но в этом
is usually seen as something not too secure, like you can keep admin passwords. But in a yacht like this, you can have like 50 IPTV devices. You can have like 20 controllers,
много чего. И,
and all of them
как я сказал,
have those very secure passwords.
firewall.
So it should be pretty easy for
Взломать такую яхту, в принципе, выглядит очень,
a bad actor
если честно,
to circumnavigate the firewall using them and hack the yacht.
проект. Я думаю, что, я ничего не знаю о яхте.
And let me stress that before this project, I knew nothing about yachts. I've never been to a yacht before. I have no clue how they work.
Суперяхт.
And now I know that if it's called a super yacht,
Есть как минимум 100
there is a very high probability there will be at least 100 smart devices there,
2-3 уязвимые устройства.
and at least a couple of them will be vulnerable.
Как взломать офис, или умный дом, даже
So
иногда легче.
this means that hacking a super yacht should be much easier than hacking an office.
Я
Now, many of you may be working
нет так
in an office.
умных устройств.
I don't think you will have as many smart devices in your office. And if you have them, I hope they are properly secured.
Есть вопросы?
Do you have questions?
Микрофон, наверное, там.
Do we have a mic?
Привет.
Привет.
Большое
Hello. Hello. Thank you very much for your presentation. Name is Victor.
про машинное отделение, наверное, больше.
My question is about the engine room primarily.
Как в целом и везде.
I noticed that in the engine room, as is expected, there are controllers. I think they are connected to some network, and there could be a server there.
Вот этого сервера.
Have you considered that? Is there a way to hack that server to actually control the engines?
На
It does look like a SCADA vulnerability to me.
туда лезть.
Or would it be too expensive for you to play with
Об
it?
этом не говорили, потому что у нас не было доступа.
We did not discuss that. We were not allowed into the engine room.
Трогать, потому что они вообще
Like, we were told not to touch anything because these devices are not connected to anything.
как сказал,
But the truth is, we were not really given enough time to play there.
500 устройств.
So we started scanning the environment. We found like 500 different devices. So we did not really look into the engine room. It's actually a pretty old super yacht.
Если было
So in all probability, they were not connected to anything.
может быть, там,
Had it been a new super yacht,
но в этом контексте нет, вообще нет ничего.
we would have wanted to explore that, but I don't think it was the case there. Got it. Thank you. Another question.
Средства обнаружения на яхте.
Are there any
Очевидно, кто что-то делает.
detection systems in place? Like, if something is being hacked, will this single IT guy be any good?
Интересно, там я бы сказал, что нет, потому что IT очень странный. Там
Not on that yacht.
один айтишник, который
They have just a single IT guy.
4 месяца в год, он в
He works 4 months a year,
начинает в феврале до
February
июня, не помню.
to June, I think.
Все делает обновление системы и так далее. Осмотр.
Now he does all these system updates and upgrades, and he's interested in security solutions.
С точки зрения безопасности,
But from the viewpoint of security, it doesn't do much.
глупых вещей. Очень.
Maybe that's why we found so many stupid mistakes there. Thank you.
Огромное спасибо за доклад на русском языке.
Wow, thank you so much for delivering your very interesting presentation in Russian. We do appreciate that. Do you think that a yacht can actually be stolen like this?
Можно ли
Can you please repeat the question? Can we hijack a super yacht like this by leveraging a chain of vulnerabilities or a chain of vulnerable devices?
Потому что есть
That's where the problem is.
как угнать.
стил?
Ну вот, окей. Хорошо.
Oh, right, stealing. That's what the question was about.
В принципе, нет. Но
No, not really.
есть физический доступ, конечно.
But if you have physical access, then yes.
Физически
Удаленно.
удаленно.
Can I do it remotely?
Значит, что нам надо было возможности двигать. Нет.
Well,
Невозможно.
that would require the ability to control the engine, which we don't have.
У нас как-то доступ к системам, как навигационная система, можно
What you can do
делать, чтобы он
by manipulating the navigation system,
все. Но
you can steer the yacht off course. That you can do. Second question.
Прошивок Firmware.
Have you tried doing reverse engineering of the firmware there? Yes.
прошивки, которые для контроллера, да, мы реверсили, да.
So we reversed, for example, the controller firmware, like I said.
Третий вопрос. Вы пробовали...
Have you tried,
У них есть различные протоколы связи между
you know, in IoT, obviously there are different connection protocols like Zigbee.
устройствами. Вот вы на уровне протоколов смотрели? Что
Have you checked the protocols there?
Протоколы, которые, ну, например, IQ
No.
и так далее, но
HiQNet is the main protocol there.
нет.
Окей.
There were no Zigbee devices there.
Человек задавал вопрос, я его чуть-чуть расширю.
So I'll expand on the previous question.
Что-то типа
These devices on a yacht,
для пост...
do they have a logger for post-analysis or not? Because you said that there is a security engineer or an IT engineer
upgrades, и так далее.
who
Но
does some maintenance,
какие-то, которые потом...
but is there any logging happening there at all? Are logs collected for post-analysis purposes? The short answer is no. I mean, the capability for that
айтишник,
is there. They don't really have a security engineer. They have just an IT guy. The question was about logs.
системы, есть логи, но они не анализируют. Я
You know what? They do create logs, but they do not analyze them.
UI, user interface, нету никаких
So
там
I'm wondering if the firmware or UIs actually generate any alerts.
контроллеров или
You mean controller firmware?
Попытка несанкционированного доступа.
Well, for example, unauthorized access attempt. Will that be flagged? Not on these controllers.
Ну, как-то мне это не видно, как и бренд, но если вы смотрите внимательно, вы можете угадать, что это такое.
Actually, if you look hard at my pictures, you will recognize the brands, and no, they do not provide such alerting function.
Здравствуйте, спасибо большое.
Hello. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's very interesting indeed. My question is like this.
Какие были еще интересные у вас в вашей
What other interesting
проекты помимо
projects have you had besides pen testing a super yacht? Maybe you had something else that would be special that you would like to briefly cover.
Необычно, но в смысле, ну как такой проект, яхт или...
Ну да, что-то
You mean something that would be as extraordinary as a yacht?
редко встречается.
Something that pen testers don't get to play with on a daily basis. I'm looking at my former manager now.
Не знаю, как сказать,
I don't know what I should tell you.
автомотив.
We had some automotive projects.
Саша Куслов, который...
Alexander Kozlov, who previously spoke,
и Сергей тоже, Николай.
as well as Sergei Nikolaev, I think,
Интересно.
should be better positioned to talk about that. We had some interesting projects for sure. In the automotive industry,
До того, как ты начинаешь такие проекты, ты не знаешь, вот, что это такое. Если я помню, что...
let alone in a yacht project, you actually know little about the subject matter field.
Лет назад
I remember my first automotive project. It was 7 years ago with BMW.
вообще ничего не знал.
Back then,
А потом ты
I knew nothing about cars.
что ты знаешь, как механически работает, но
And then I was told that it doesn't really matter if you understand the very innards of a car. All you need to understand is how systems interact inside.
такой проект выглядит очень,
You know, a project like this,
как сказать, ну, страшно, я бы сказал. Сначала, потому что...
appears very daunting because in a super yacht, you've got an elevator of all things and like 100 people there. But in fact, you know, the way you run it is like a regular pen test. Impressive. Thank you so much.
Добрый день. У меня есть еще один вопрос.
Hello. I have another question.
Про много уязвимых устройств, собственно,
You told us about numerous vulnerable devices on a yacht. Can we actually get remote access to the navigation system?
Система навигационная, они специально не подключают.
Well, the navigation system itself is not connected to the internet. Remember, I showed the PC1 and PC2 picture.
Скачают
But
обновление в флешку.
imagine that they download an update to the maps on a USB stick, then they put it inside their navigation PC.
Можешь,
Can you compromise that?
да, я думаю, что надо физический доступ. Удаленно просто так.
I think you need physical access for that. It's very difficult to do it remotely.
Между этого.
Всё, спасибо большое.
Ну, чё.
Thank you very much.
Здравствуйте, спасибо за
Hello. Thank you for your presentation.
Молодые люди спрашивали, например, про систему логирования. Кто-то спрашивал,
So young people here have been asking the logging system. I think it was Victor who asked about AV.
как такового.
And you said that there is no such thing as AV and the logging system is there, but it doesn't warn anybody of unauthorized access attempts. Can we actually assume or conclude that such a luxury premium product
Продукт технологического массового потребления.
is in fact very poorly secured compared to a mass market product even?
Умные устройства, да? И там есть не защита, да.
Yes,
Тебе вопрос,
there are devices there that are very poorly secured.
что не так не происходит там, да? Но если у нас
I'm not sure I understand the question though.
есть логи, есть система логи,
Now
например,
take logs, for example.
они ничего не делают с этими логами.
The problem is that nobody does anything about those logs.
Если у нас есть продукты, которые так делают, не буду называть.
And you know what? Outside the yachting world, there are other companies that can do that.
Что-то не так.
Oh, I'm sorry, there are companies that analyze logs that can help you. Thank you.
Еще один вопрос. Спасибо за доклад, было интересно.
Thank you for this interesting presentation.
Про устройство, что вот разные устройства есть
You told us about different devices.
сетевая инфраструктура, которая
I'm wondering about the network infrastructure connecting them.
firewall,
I
4
understand there is a firewall. You told us that there were 4 subnets, Wi-Fi.
пробовали.
What kind of vendor supplied it? Had you tried attacking network devices?
Больше всего Cisco.
Most of the time, okay, on that particular yacht, they were using Cisco primarily.
Часть сетей, которые используют
You know, some networks
I-
are using a RIP protocol,
это динамическая система
which is a dynamic
dynamic routing. Ну так,
routing system.
Протокол маршрутизации RIP вы имеете в виду?
да.
So you mean the RIP routing protocol? It's very old. It is. It is.
Да,
Is it still alive?
В принципе, это удобно, когда у тебя есть
In fact, RIP is convenient when you have a small network.
удобно в этот случай. Но,
It's convenient.
в принципе, тут они использовали такие RIP версии 1.
So they were using RIP version 1.
Нет нотификации. И
So there is no authentication there at all.
пошарить через broadcast. Это значит, что если
So they share a path
отправить
via broadcasting.
как пути, я говорю, что
So when I'm connecting to the network,
получить доступ к этому сети, надо через меня. Ну,
I'm sort of announcing that, okay,
и все. А там
okay, so the router says, if you don't connect to the network, use me.
TV и так далее. Не очень критический, но тем не менее там было.
Well, you know, it's IPTV that they used to connect to that, and that's not really critical. In other respects, you know, they used OSPF, so they use OSPF as well, right?
Ну, RIP это одна большая дыра, он там не шифрует.
Okay, RIP is a single hole, right? So there is no encryption there. I understand that.
Понял, если RIP версия 1, соответственно, там и
So if it's RIP version 1, it means that it's IPv4. Absolutely. Thank you.
Извиняюсь, еще один вопрос. Такой, я
I'm sorry, another question. Am I getting it right?
тем, как происходит обслуживание и с качеством
That given the level of security and the maintenance potential, spies could have easily used those devices as sensors or as parts of an eavesdropping system.
например, на год, на какое-то время.
For example, they could, you know, easily keep this stuff there for like a year, given that, you know, there is enough storage there to store all the data.
Предлагать услуги по
Have you considered offering services to super yacht owners around kind of cleaning their assets, checking if there is any, you know, undisclosed functionality there?
не могут, но
Because they can certainly go checking their yachts for bugs and recording devices. Well, we certainly gave them all sorts of recommendations in our pen testing reports.
Если так делали, не знаю, если честно. Когда это
I don't know if they follow these recommendations.
то все
You
сделали,
know, for the pen test, we had 10 days.
ну, обновление и так далее. Если не
And naturally, we told them to, you know, update things and so on.
есть возможности так
I
делать,
cannot really comment on where they did it.
легко, но довольно не сложно.
I think that a service like this would be a bit unusual, but not too difficult to offer.
У человека, ну, лично человека, там это не коммерческий.
So it's a yacht which belongs to an individual. It's not a commercial establishment, you know? He invites guests there.
Президенты и так далее.
Like, if these guests are like presidents, that would probably make sense. But maybe not. And if he believes
Решение сложно для айтишника, особенно здесь.
it's not that important,
Сказать, что
and since like he's the only decision maker there, you know, an IT engineer is hardly in the right position to tell him that he should be investing in it. Well, we do hope that our report
и
opened their eyes to those risks.
только один пентест, и потом,
But all we did was just a single pen test.
ну, говорю, что есть ниша,
да,
I'm just trying to tell you that there is a niche.
кто занимается ремонтом и так далее.
You may want to talk to companies that provide maintenance services. So you can offer a security check, like prior to the start of the season, do a security audit their hardware, because I think they are checking their yachts for recording devices, but they're not checking their hardware. So I'm thinking this could be an interesting niche for making money. At the start of the season,
Есть люди, которые делают ремонт.
they do bring lots of people there, like 200 people. Some are doing repairs.
В кухне и так далее.
Others will be checking
Я думаю,
the
что
canteen or what's it called? Boon? The kitchen, in other words.
важно, что яхт выглядит красиво и так далее.
But you do understand the logic of most clients in the yachting industry. They want the thing to be reliable
Конечно, было бы,
and beautiful. They don't care so much about security. Thank you very much again.
Можно?
Да.
Добрый день. Я на яхтах не был. Мне
Hello, never been to a yacht myself.
со статикой.
I wonder about grounding and static electricity there. Can you feel the difference compared to ground installations? Can you please repeat the question? Or maybe...
На яхте использование электроники,
So, usage of electronics in a yacht,
электричество и
is it more difficult because of static electricity and grounding?
В принципе, все то же самое, да.
It's pretty much the same.
то есть ничего не горит, ничего не ломается.
So things do not burn, they do not break down. Well, I think they do,
Очень хорошо знаю, но в
but
принципе,
I'm no big expert on that.
только мы были там на яхте 10 дней.
Again, we spent only 10 days on that yacht,
Мы были, может быть,
and we did not sleep there,
12-13 часов в день.
so we'd spend like 12 or 13 hours every day, and things seem to be working fine.
Где-то 200,
I think they pay like 2,000
Да, в день, да.
2,000 for electricity per day. He didn't say what, 2,000 of what, but that's a lot. And things seem to be working fine for them.
Все, спасибо большое.
Thank you very much.